Good morning, everyone. The Durham Public Schools Board of Education Durham Delegates meeting is now in session. At this time, we wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us this morning. The interpreters for today are Karen Reyes and Celia Mora. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. The next item on our agenda is a moment of silence. Thank you. And next, we'll have agenda review and approval. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Byer and seconded by Mr. Tabb to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Please use the same sign. The agenda passes. The next item on our agenda is introductions. So if we could maybe just go around. I know we have some new faces in the room, which makes this especially exciting meeting today. Our first chance as this group together to talk about how we work together. And so if we could start with maybe Mr. Tabb, go around the room and just share name and position and how long you've been in your role.
Good morning, everyone. Wendell Tabb, school board member, been here since July 1 of last year.
Good morning. I'm Natalie Byer. I have been on this board from District 4 since 2010. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Representative Ray Jeffers, District 2, Person County, Northern Durham, in my second term.
Good morning, Emily Chavez, she, her pronouns. I have been on this board since July 2022, representing District 1.
Senator Sophia Chitlick, representing Northern and Central Durham County, and I started this role in January.
Thank you all. And thank you, Emily, for remembering that we should, Board Member Chavez, to remember that we should include pronouns, if you're willing. My name is Jessica Carter-Otten. I represent District 3, serving as vice chair currently, and I've been on the board since for about 2 years now, since March 2023.
Good morning, everyone. Anthony Lewis, superintendent. I've actually been here. I've been telling people 8 months, but it's actually seven months. Superintendent, super excited to have you all here this morning.
Representative Zach Calkins, he, him pronouns, House District 31, which is parts of downtown East Durham and all of RTP. This is term 4. I'm the proud parent of 2 DPS little ones in elementary school at Parkwood and Mangum Elementary.
Good morning. I am Joy Harrell Goff, she, her pronouns, school board at large member. Since July 1 of 2024.
Good morning, Marcia Maury, Representative District 30, most of downtown Durham and going towards Duke. This is my 5th term.
Thank you, everybody. And again, welcome to the meeting this morning. The next item on our agenda is the DPS Legislative Agenda 2025. I just have a few remarks that I wrote down because it's only been about 7 hours since we left this room. So I'll open that, open with some remarks and then give, my plan is to give board members a chance to share a little bit more about some of the priorities that we established in the legislative agenda. And then our guests here today to ask questions, to share their perspectives. And everybody has the legislative agenda in front of them as well. So if you want to take a look at that, so I'll open just by saying that I don't need to tell anybody in this room that these are challenging times right now. I think you all know probably better than the rest of us, given what you're facing at the state level. Just in the past few months, we've seen attacks on public education, on the rights and the dignity of our neighbors that are unlike any we've seen in recent history. They've left our students and their families feeling scared for their safety. our school system uncertain about the future of critical funding and uncertain about how we'll continue to do the important work that we do here in DPS to provide equitable access to high-quality, culturally responsive education for all of our students. We know that you are already working hard. We've been watching what you're doing already at the state level, introducing some important pieces of legislation. Thank you so much. We know that your efforts align with what we need here in Durham. So what we're asking for is probably not going to be a surprise for you. And again, we'll align with what you're already doing. But I think it's worth having this conversation here today to talk through this together. We're focused on what we need from the state to continue cultivating the conditions here for all Durham students to thrive amidst all these challenges. So I just put very broadly, wanted to go through some things that we support that we're interested in. And I think I'm not going to go line by line through the legislative agenda, but this outline, I think, will give you a sense of what we're seeking. So first, we support public funds for public education, not for private education. We support protecting the rights of students and staff to celebrate their identities free from discrimination and free from fear. Efforts to fully fund services for our most vulnerable students, including but not limited to our English language learners. I prefer the term emerging bilingual learners, our exceptional children, and all of our students in need of additional support for social services and mental health support. We support funding to ensure that all students have access to high-quality pre-K to get them on the right start before they begin kindergarten, transportation to and from school because you can't learn if you're not in school, school buildings that are safe, healthy, joyful learning spaces for our students, and highly skilled educators and support staff that they need to thrive. So to that end, you'll see that our legislative agenda is loosely divided into three categories: students at the center of everything, educators, and infrastructure. And then in each category, we've aligned priorities with what I've described. So at this point, if any other board members would like to share some specific items in the legislative agenda that stand out to them, especially I know that Ms. Harold Goff, Ms. Umstead and Ms. Chavez worked hard to build this agenda for us, and then the whole board has discussed and approved it. But if y'all want to start by sharing something that feels really important to you to get us going.
Without like going through, because everything is written down, on the last part, the one thing that I wanted to just lift up a little bit higher is with something that we've been hearing directly from our youth. There is how we can really prioritize climate justice and global warming and in the infrastructure, under infrastructure, the statewide capital bond that will repair and update aging facilities, making sure that we keep a lens for the investment that we're doing to make sure that our schools are sustainable for the environment as well. I just wanted to highlight that because I'm hearing that from a lot of our young people, from the Sunrise Movement and other things like that. I want to make sure that we're also listening to our youthful stakeholders who are doing a lot of organizing and work to keep that in the forefront of our minds as we're moving forward with these.
Well, thank you all. Yes, for all that you already do. I'll highlight a couple of things. One, just the caps that sorry, I turned my mic off and on and then off. Yeah, addressing the caps that need to be addressed. That's a huge issue, and I think Dr. Lewis just cited last night how much money we would save on from our local funds if the caps were not there. And you can see obviously both among our emerging bilingual sometimes trilingual speakers. And also our EC students, which are obviously not mutually exclusive categories either. Our percentages exceed what we receive money from the state for. And if we really think about the right to an education for all students, meeting them where they are, of course, addressing these is very important. I know that there was a bill, I don't know the number, that Ms. Carter Otten reminded me of, that is addressing the ELL cap that Senator Murdoch is part of pushing forward. So we appreciate that. Also, just wanted to highlight the pieces around mental health supports. Dr. Lewis, I was going back to this piece that he sent us in his weekly update, his informative weekly updates about this book, The Anxious Generation. I didn't read the book. I read the article about the book. But it is kind of talking about the, the effects of the digital world on the mental health of our young people. We know that there are mental health issues that remain from the COVID time. So it is a different world that our young people are experiencing than we grew up with, any of us up here. I think, this also, you all, I think, know about the national case legislation against the social media companies and all of that. It just speaks to the, the need to more so hone into the mental health of our young people. Without that support, they cannot really, academically thrive in most cases. So we are sorely off of the recommended ratios for social workers who play a vital role. I just got my MSW last year. So I feel very, aligned and connected with that work. But all of the school social or school support work that happens in our schools is so necessary to sometimes bringing our students back to being able to focus or address other needs that they have. So I'll just highlight those two. And it goes without saying the pay. I will also say that the pay in and looking at how much it costs to live in this area or live anywhere. We know that the homelessness rates have gone up. It's alarming to see that across the country, but it's really just such a battle to support our people so that they can focus on the work that they love to do. So thank you all for everything that you do.
Thank you. Ditto to what she said. Do want to continue to lift up educators, supporting our educators. We know that that's been on the table for many, many years, and sometimes we feel like there's no movement. And but thank you all for your advocacy and trying to get us more. Not only with just the pay, which is so important, but just around here again, the workplace conditions and facilities and just so much that goes into just the environment itself. So whatever we can do to continue to make these environments for educators a great place to work would be most appreciative. And so also around the mental health of educators and staff as well, so important. So thank you all for that.
So I just want to express such gratitude for you all. You all know that these are not partisan issues. You know the families and students and educators and staff that we represent in Durham as the third largest employer and the 8th largest district in the state. You know that the nightmare privatization and changes since 2010 in this state have have really profoundly impacted children. You know that the lack of funding Leandro has continued into a second or third generation of young people. And you know that y'all are doing right in the space that you battle for our children and families. And so I just so appreciate the work that you all are continuing to do to speak truth in Raleigh, to speak truth, our congressional representatives speaking truth in DC. It matters. It matters for families to hear you all standing up for them and what folks need. Thank you for running the bill for teacher housing for us, for calendar flexibility. Um, you know, these are not partisan issues, but when we tell you that 70% of our folks going into EC classrooms have no background as educators, that we're needing to train them to work with our most vulnerable students, that's the state of education and the teacher pipeline in North Carolina. That should alarm all of us. We've fallen behind. As you know, we're near the bottom of the 50 states, right? We continue to stay there, not where Governor Hunt had us. We're so glad that Superintendent Green is there along with you all. He can speak this truth as well. He and the state board and their legislative agenda, I would add to our legislative agenda, along with the one you all received from North Carolina School Boards Association, and our lobbyists are always in touch with you all. But I just have such gratitude for you all. It has been a tough year and a half or so for Durham Public Schools. You'll notice that the folks behind us, our leaders, a lot of them are new. I want them to have a chance, Dr. Lewis, maybe to introduce themselves. When I was just going to throw to you in a minute, if that is all right. Dr. Lewis, in his 7 months, has just last night presented to us his post-entry plan. He's been around listening and learning Durham, and he's done a remarkable job. He has high aspirations for making Durham Public Schools the premier district in the country. Like, he's not talking about the state, he's talking about the nation. And so we appreciate y'all's help. We have finally gotten starting wages for our employees to $17.50 an hour, which is a huge improvement and over most districts in the state of North Carolina, but that's using local funds. And we are pressing what we can do with local county property tax increases, as the county is feeling more stress about uncertainty at the federal level as well. And so, the city and the county have their starting wages at above $19 an hour. They're well above 19. And so that gap is going to continue to widen. And we need as much as possible for state resources to continue to support children. You know this. I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know. But I've been so impressed with Dr. Lewis and how much he loves his community already, and how much he's engaged with the North Carolina Superintendents Association and other school leaders across the state. So I'd love for him, if it's okay, Vice Chair Cotter-Otten, to share kind of his perspective on learning North Carolina, because he's not in Kansas anymore, and share with you all what we need and amplify our messages.
Thank you so much, Board Member Byron. Good morning again, everyone. Yeah, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Sometimes the more we uncover stuff, I sometimes want to click my heels and go back. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm really enjoying Durham, an amazing community that really supports public education. I do want to take a moment, thank you, Board Member Byron, to introduce our team here that was just here, and it seems like in the same spot a few hours ago, and here they are again. They're the reason that we're continuing to, as it was mentioned last night, turn this huge ship around. And it's not like you turn a speedboat around; it's turning a huge, massive ship, and they are helping us turn this around. So I would like the team to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nicholas King, Deputy Superintendent.
Tanya Giovanni, Deputy Superintendent for Administrative, Legal, and Compliance Services.
Kim Hager, Assistant Superintendent, HR.
Jeremy Teeter, Chief Finance Officer. I've been here since November, and as evidenced by the ever-growing beard, he, him pronouns.
Sorry about the shuffle. Good morning, Sheena Cooper, Senior Executive Director for Public Affairs.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, this team really works hard for Durham Public Schools. And I want to thank you all for the work that you do. I often tell people in this community that we can't do this work alone. And so the work that you do on our behalf is extremely important. And I just want to echo some of the sentiments that were made earlier, particularly as it relates to funding. If we think about just, for example, our EC exceptional education funding that we receive and the 13% cap, I was telling the budget team that we met with yesterday at the county, when I was getting my degree in special education in the late 90s, there was some research around school districts' average number of special education students or percentage should be around 13%. And here we are at a 13% cap here in 2025 of EC. And so our numbers are a little over 16%. And we will continue to do what we need to do to support our EC scholars. However, if we would get the funding based on the number or percentage of students that we have, there'll be additional $5.5 million that we will receive. So in other words, we're taking $5.5 million out of general fund to cover and support our EC learners. Similarly, our English language learners, that cap is 10%. And in Durham, our percentage is double that, 22%, over double that, 22%. And that we only receive $6 million. And so if we think about the amount of money that we could be, that money that we could be using, all over $11 million, that equates to about 150 teachers. All right, to put that into perspective, that will further help some of the other initiatives in terms of increasing salary and addressing some of our other needs as well. And then I'll just echo the teacher housing. I know there's a lot of synergy around this community on teacher housing. And I want people to understand it's not just about ensuring that our educators have affordable housing. But what happens is they begin to develop a community within themselves that supports them as new teachers. I remember spending time with our Duke Teach House teachers and them sharing just that community and the fact that they're in that community with other beginning teachers. Many of them share that they would not continue to be in education had it not been for Duke Teach House. And again, not just from the standpoint of affordable housing, but the community that they create, within themselves. And so, the more that we can support our beginning year teachers, the better, because teachers tend to leave the profession in year 1 to 3. So anything that we can do to support our educators in additional funding will be appreciated. If I could take it a step further from the federal level, it's a 40% funding that the IDEA, federal government, is supposed to fund. That has not been met. Well, it hasn't been met, period. The closest that has been is 18%. That was 2004 and 2006. So federal government and the state level as well to ensure that we are receiving adequate funding. So thank you so much for your advocacy.
So with that, I'd like to open it up for any of our guests to share thoughts or questions or reflections. Would you like to go first, Representative Hawkins?
This group allowed me to chair the delegation in the absence of Senator Mike Woodard. So I'm so grateful to be the organizer in chief. Thank you, Nicole Smith. I don't know where she is. For helping to make this meeting happen. It took a while, but we stuck with it. First, can't wait to see, hopefully a lot of you at least tune in on TV to watch Sterling Durham High School win a state championship tonight. Hoping to leave around 6 o'clock. Those Spartans. One of the things that a few of the things that we're working on. First, Superintendent Mo Green is coming to Durham. I think you all know that he'll be here in April at Northern Durham High School. And we have shared with him, a lot of us, our priorities, which include EC. I think, as you both know, I have 2 boys with autism in Durham Public Schools. And so we get a chance to see what is working and what's not. And a lot of it is all the things you just outlined, right? And so Senator Chitlick and I specifically sit on EdApprops, Education Appropriations, and have challenged that 13% cap. And I think that there's a lot of momentum around it because I co-chair the IDD caucus, which is bicameral and bipartisan, and the advocates have decided to put it into our omnibus bill this year. Because every single LEA across the state is saying the exact same thing, that we have to do something about it. And not only for sort of the gen ed population are you having substitute teachers, but you're also having to do it for EC. And so that is a number one focus for us. We've also raised, both with our colleagues and with the superintendent, that North Carolina is number one in the country for suspending children with disabilities. And that is something that North Carolina, we're proud of being number one in a lot of ways. That is not one that we need to stay on the top of. And then one piece that we're, making sure of, very specifically in the EC space, is to ask them about, just plans for recruitment. So we don't have to talk about that today, but I would love to hear about specific plans, because we are making sure that we push the state in that direction. Because again, we have to ensure that there's a pipeline that's serving and wants to serve that population. It can't just be sort of, again, a gen ed teacher. Thank you for uplifting the bilingual scholars and potentially trilingual scholars. That is something that we most certainly have to pay attention to, and equating that to the 150 teachers gives us a really good talking point. Because to be completely honest, I don't think, unless we make those kinds of correlations for our colleagues, they don't understand. And some of it is intentional, but not all of it, right? And so I think being able to point those things out and then be able to work with LEAs across the state or DPI to give us that number for everybody, you probably, again, you're in the thousands at that point. And so that was a really good highlight. I'm gonna ask Senator Chitlick when I complete to talk about childcare, early childcare and after school. If that's okay? And we do have questions about the best ways to support bus drivers. I know that the Durham Public Schools Foundation has essentially the fund to support the bus driver shortage and to get people engaged in that process. So again, we can say that towards the end of the meeting, but we just want to make sure that we are able, as a delegation, to push out anything that you have that you think is relevant to support that effort. We have filed as a delegation bills when Governor Cooper kicked off the Drive Task Force. I was a lead legislator on that. And so we have really pushed lots of that work consistently. Now that we've had to pull out, things that are related to diversity to move them forward, which is, doesn't sound right, but it's a lot of the efforts that we have pushed, and we're going to refile that bill with all the accomplishments and the way forward. Because one piece that's pretty evident, and that's why in a recent op-ed I wrote, I highlighted the DREAM program, and just how much we have to rely on teacher diversity to fill the gap. I think right now North Carolina is going towards 6,000. That's a lot of people. And so we're hoping that we can make strides in that area, and that also goes along with the bill that we filed. We're not calling it Leandro this time, we're just calling it basic, sound basic education. And so we're pushing to make sure that teachers, and actually one of my Republican colleagues, we're Democrats, but our Republican colleagues, that's for the public, not you all, filed a bill that asks for starting pay for teachers at $50,000. And so there seems to be some synergy around that. Now, the piece that they did not include was support for those that are teachers at 15 to 24 years, which I have issue with. And we can get into the back end of that, but they want the aim is just to bring people into the profession, right? To get them into LEA, to EPPs, and to get them into the profession. And so, and the governor has also called for that as well. So he was supportive of that bill, and it should make its way through the legislative process. But we will most certainly keep you up to date. In the sound basic education bill, we did call for more mental health professionals, counselors, et cetera. And so that is going to be both in the House and the Senate side, supported by our delegation. And the governor, in his State of the State address, also called for a $4 billion school bond. Now, this was supported. Tim Moore, I think Tim Moore, maybe 2 terms ago, who's former Speaker of the House, now in Congress, called for that. The Senate did not push it. But we think that with the leverage that the governor has and all the goodwill, so many school districts across the state, as you mentioned, now, Natalie Byer, that we believe that he has an opportunity to move that forward, or at least he's going to present it in his budget. And one of the other pieces hit towards the end that I want to just give a highlight to before I pass it on is based on a bipartisan bill I worked on specifically around bereavement leave. There's an executive order that has included that. So it stands only through EO right now, but that it gives state employees the ability to have a section for bereavement leave. Now, Becky Feinglos, who some of you all know in this community, is working on grieve leave. And so she is partnering with me and a Republican House member to try and like codify this into law. But that was something that we worked on last term. And the governor's executive order, Governor Cooper's executive order, is still in place around paid parental leave. So again, that's something that, we need to move forward or improve as well. The teacher affordable housing, Representative Austin is leading that effort. We do battle about this term after term that there is a lot of local authority to go ahead and move forward with that, especially if you have an organization like Durham Public Schools Foundation, as well as a willing developer. So I'll keep saying it. Don't wait on the state to move forward with this effort if you have local resources to do so. Berkeley County did not come to the state of North Carolina to get that done. And I understand, and I'm speaking to our legal folks at the back of the room, and HR, that they did not come to us, and the other LEAs that have done this have not come to us. And so, again, if you have a nonprofit, a financier, your county government, like those, this is something that you can move forward with. I'm glad to connect you with those folks if you need any help. But other than that, I am really appreciative of you all pulling together such a comprehensive agenda. And I'll pass it to Senator Chitlick to talk about that, and then to Representative Moore.
Thank you so much. We're so fortunate to have Representative Hawkins and our entire Durham delegation. One of the great privileges is to be able to see them in action and the way that we are fighting really as a team for Durham. And so I just want to express my gratitude to my colleagues and to Zach for his leadership, and also to all of you who are working, on the front lines every day, dealing with looming uncertainty and the realities on the ground. So thank you. We hear you, we see it, and we're trying to be your boots on the ground in Raleigh. So before I talk about childcare, I just want to briefly talk about the privatization of our education system and let you know that we're standing in solidarity with you in that fight. And with the, our state fiscal forecast, not only is privatizing our education system a bad idea for a variety of reasons, but it's also not something we can afford to do this year or going forward. And so I'll be introducing a bill to freeze opportunity scholarships, school vouchers, and we will continue to advocate and to push in every single conversation we have about private school accountability, about where this money actually goes. And we'll be elevating that fight and have elevated that fight in countless conversations already during education appropriations, which I have the privilege of serving on. And also in other bills. It comes up all the time. And so we won't stop talking about it. The other things I heard a lot mentioned about are teacher training, teacher workforce, teacher pay, teacher pipelines. I do think there is broad consensus that teacher pay needs to be higher. We'll keep fighting for that. I think there's also some interesting conversations about teacher training, apprenticeships, and other ways to make sure that we're getting folks who are trained and qualified to help fight some of these gaps. And I've been asking a lot of questions about data and permanent substitutes and making sure that we can get the resources that we need. There's also some interesting conversations happening about other folks in the school, particularly on mental health. There's a bill in the Senate right now around increasing pay for school psychologists. I've been meeting with our school social workers in Raleigh, talking about their needs and making sure that we're elevating those voices. And just generally making sure we support everyone in a school building. So I'll be introducing legislation that provides categorical eligibility to our early childhood educators, also to everyone who works in a school building for childcare subsidy up to $125,000 a year household income, as well as our public safety workers. And that also provides state income tax exemption for all of those workers. And it pays for that with an increase, a very modest increase in taxes for millionaires in our state. So while we do have a not the most optimistic fiscal forecast for our state, we do have money to do things. And a lot of the challenge here is just about choices. And I want to elevate the conversation that we can be making different choices, particularly to support the people that we say are our heroes. So I'm interested in holding my colleagues accountable for that and to act like it. Okay, back to childcare, a great passion. You know, one of the things that we're working on is making sure that every young person can enter the school building ready for this. So, you know, I actually think childcare starts with paid leave. So that's something that we'll be fighting for, as well as for, I'll be introducing a bill around kin care and sick days to make sure that folks can use their sick days to take care of sick loved ones as well. You know, there's a major conversation happening about childcare in Raleigh right now. The governor has a new task force that is bipartisan and co-chaired by Senator Jim Bergen and Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt. And we've been, you know, in very, very close communication with all of those folks, talking about big ideas that we need here. So we're not just talking about the early educator workforce and making sure that our community colleges are expanding that and making sure that we have a living wage for those folks. But we are also talking about provider expansion and facilities expansion. There's been a lot of talk around using our existing facilities, both state-owned buildings as well as our DPI, our actual public school buildings around childcare. And I have some questions for this group about the impacts of that because I think there's a lot of pressure around that issue. You know, there's obviously major conversations about raising the subsidy floor. I introduced a bill on Friday to continue the childcare stabilization grants for providers. We cannot just not have a conversation about losing 20% of our childcare providers this year. And so we're continuing to advocate for that. The big thing that I'm focusing on is facilities and childcare financing to make sure that we're expanding proven providers, and have a series of you know, bills and also conversations. But I think the great news is that that is a truly bipartisan conversation. There is a lot of pressure from all 100 counties to tackle this issue. Pre-K is a part of that conversation. We have people on the other side of the aisle who would like to see pre-K institutionalized in public schools. So I think this is really a conversation that whose time has come, and I'm eager to get everybody's thoughts and feedback on that, and happy to take questions on it.
Representative Maury and then Representative Jeffers.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for all the work that all of you do on the school board, the staff, the superintendent. It's amazing. It's an honor to be over in Raleigh representing Durham and you all. And the agenda you have, I think Zach has spoken to most of it. I'm on K-12, which is, you know, kindergarten through 12th grade committee. A lot of work is done in the committees. And I know you all have full-time jobs. I would love more communication with bills that come up, how you feel about it, like the cell phone bill. You know, it was a gut reaction. You know, I think it was pitting kind of teachers, educators, and their desires to have a good classroom, ban cell phones. And then I got communication from parents. Well, what if there's an emergency? What if there's a threat? You know, I want to know my kid is safe. So there is this tension. I would love to hear what would the Durham School Board think is in the best interest, you know? Should we ban cell phones? The governor came out in his state of the state, like ban cell phones in our schools. And that's fine, but your input would be very helpful, especially in those committees. We will be getting a lot more bills coming through. We meet on Tuesdays, I think it's at 1:00. I will try and communicate with you. Please give me your point person. Things come up kind of quickly. We have committee substitutes that are just suddenly there. But that is a time, if I had a identified person and to give me good information, I can say, on behalf of my constituents in my district and the Durham School Board, this is, you know, what we want. It came up with the Parent Bill of Rights bill last session, which was a huge bill. So those things will be coming up. I'm sure the opportunity scholarships to continue those will be coming up. Senator Chitlett spoke well about that. We need to stop that. A lot of things that come through judiciary, which I also sit on, is about student behavior, increasing criminal penalties that affect children. We had a huge debate that went on and on about students throwing water at law enforcement can now be a felony. Throwing water. We had an amendment trying to say if it's a harmful substance, that's different, but water. So these kind of things come up, and it's on the point of ridiculousness, but we got to be aware of it. That may become law if the Senate takes it up. Hopefully they will think that was a ridiculous bill being pushed forward. The last thing I'll say that I always say, and every time I'm here and I say it, I am so concerned about truancy. I am so concerned about the high truancy rates across the state, especially after COVID. And what are we doing to reaching out to getting these kids, these parents more involved? Like in Durham, some other jurisdictions, they're not enforcing the laws of compulsory school attendance. Is that good? We don't want to criminalize parents for not having their kids in school, but also we need to do something to make sure they are in school. We are losing too many kids. Some districts, and you all know, have schools truancy rates as high as 40%. That is unacceptable. We have to do more to attack truancy, and I hope in the budget we can put something in for school districts to have specialty, you know, community social workers, whatever, to outreach to get these kids back in. And I say that at a time when the biggest fear for 22% of Durham school kids is what is ICE doing? You know, the fear these kids are living under right now, I cannot imagine. And I introduced a bill, and it would be to prohibit ICE from coming into churches and schools. You know, that is off limits for ICE. It won't go anywhere, but we still have to message some of these things that we feel are our core values. So thanks a lot for this opportunity, and I'm always available to outreach.
Well, thank you all. I know last time I was a new person, but that goes to our senator now. But Senator Murdoch and I are the only ones that represent 2 school districts. And I find myself sometime, I think last year we saw some funding pieces that they were going to put out there that may have given more money to Person County, but you all would have lost, you know, quite a bit of money. And so I think keeping us abreast on issues like that or things that we hear, Representative Moore is right. We have a new speaker, so it seems like we're doing more committee work, and which is a good thing. We've been able to see some successes in getting some amendments and some things done in committee. But if you all can keep tabs on that, and that may have you coming down to see us, Dr. Lewis, to speak at a committee and talk about the impact to Durham and the school system if we see some of these bills. And you know, committee work is good. Doesn't mean we're not going to have some bill out there that names April 1st Tomato Day that will be gutted later and have some horrific thing put in its place once we get past our bill filing dates, which is coming up in April. So just keep us abreast and stay in touch with, I think, our office, especially those that serve on those committees that will hear some of those bills first. Now, I'm a former county commissioner. I'll be the first to say that the state not fulfilled its statutory responsibility of funding schools. And they put that supplemental to do that on the counties to supplement that. And so I think for me, especially with some of the bills that we're going to be coming to see that we'll possibly see big revenues for the state as they try to make up this fiscal cliff that we're headed towards, that if we know some of these things like the cap in some other areas, that we may can, as we negotiate some of these bills that they need some of us on, that we may can get some of this funding recurring with some of these new revenues that the state may see if we go the route that looks like we're going with gambling and other things that they're looking to try to make up some of the revenue loss. And so just thank you all for what you're all doing in this building, and definitely thank you to your teachers and your certified and your non-certified staff who work with the children of Durham. I think y'all have over 40,000, how many students? Person County is 40,000 people. So y'all got y'all got Person County in your school system. So so very appreciative to what you all do. And then also wanted to mention, I know we have, and we did it last year, but we have Legislator of School Day coming up. And so hope we get that coordinated so we can come and visit again and see the good work that you all are doing face to face.
I did. Thank you, Representative Jeffers. And as he will be the point person as the state tries to fill its gaps with some of those things. So all your special requests you can send to Representative Jeffers. We're all going to back him up this year. A few things. Youth sports. Speaking of sports betting, last year, North Carolina Amateur Sports is managing a process that we include. We first started with nonprofits that were youth sports, but we included LEAs, and so they expended $700,000, and there were no Durham applications. And so I will send that information around. I have sent it to the athletic director so that he was aware, as well as the Durham Sports Commission. But it gives the opportunity for upgrades to facilities, new uniforms, travel opportunities, et cetera. And so we just want to make sure that Durham takes advantage of that. We'll also send information around to, as Representative Jeffers mentioned, to come to Raleigh, the IDD caucus, which I know you, Mr. Superintendent, from your background would be eloquent to engage in. And so that's just, meeting people from around the state and hearing the big issues. And then we would love to support your efforts to become a premier LEA. Workforce development, especially with RTP right in our background. All of us as a delegation are dedicated to making those connections for you and making sure that we create that bi-directional communication, which also includes the Durham Public Schools Foundation, because we absolutely believe that we're better than everyone else. And we absolutely can be. And it's not just a thought, because there aren't too many school districts that have a Premier One research engine, biomedical, biotech, AI right in its backyard. And so our students deserve those opportunities too. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for the opportunity. Excuse my cold. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for closing. And I wonder, are there any other remarks that anybody else would like to share before we wrap up our, yes, Ms. Byer?
Wondered if we wanted to make sure y'all are aware of the Durham Early College of Health Sciences and those programming. I don't know who's best equipped to talk about that. And I heard Representative Hawkins want specific conversation about bus drivers. And I think we have some ideas that Dr. Lewis could share.
Thank you, Ms. Byer. Dr. Lewis.
Do we want to talk about early college first, Dr. King?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly to that. We are really excited about the impending opening of the new Durham Early College for Health Sciences. This is a project that is a partnership between Durham Public Schools, Durham Technical Community College, and Duke Health Systems that has been launched pursuant to the acquiring of a $29 million grant some time ago. What makes this school program, what will make it unique is its focus on workforce development. And specifically, we have developed, or I should say are still in the process of working really hard to develop a number of pathways, all of which are specifically designed around particularly acute areas of need in terms of health services in this particular community. The school has and the partnership has established an expectation and goal that some 60 to 80% of the students who complete the program will do so and move directly into health sciences related careers immediately after high school, having earned certifications that would allow them to go directly to work. So we are very excited about that program. We will be opening in August at an interim location while the work goes on the campus of Durham Tech to work on an existing building that will become the permanent home of the school in hopefully, if everything goes well with the construction, in 2 years. But we are awfully excited about that program. The goal was to have 100 students to start the new year, the first year, and we are very close to that number and feel confident that we'll get there. So it's exciting opportunity, exciting for Durham to add yet another early college to our collection, if you will, of early colleges. And we're just excited about the work that we're doing there and the opportunities that this is going to provide for students in Durham.
And that's just an example of, thank you, Dr. King. That's just an example of an identified need, and we're doing something about it through partnerships. I often tell people the future workforce of Durham is right here in our classrooms. And so those individuals, those students and scholars that will be attending this school will also have a job once they finish, pretty much, in the medical field. So thank you, Dr. King. I do want to follow up on the our bus drivers. I think you asked to kind of share some ideas that we have about bus drivers. I think one is the more that we can do, and we have that included in here, to continue to invest in their compensation, the starting salary of $20. And we're working on the back end here in the district to see what we can do in that regard. I think another huge opportunity, you mentioned it as well, Representative Hawkins, around partnerships to help cover the cost of what it takes to just become a bus driver. It's about a little over $400 for us to bring a bus driver on board, and that's $400 out of their pockets. And so our Durham Public Schools Foundation have stepped up in a major way to help cover those costs. Erica Wilkins with the foundation just texted me this week and said, as of Tuesday morning, they had raised $6,000 to assist bus drivers. I remember we had a career fair for bus drivers at the SDC. Was that last month? And there was an individual that filled out an application and was walking out the door, and she said, I can't afford to pay that. And she was going to leave. And I stopped her and said, well, first of all, at least can you sign up to be a bus monitor? And I was letting her know that the foundation was willing to partner with us, and we will follow up with her. And so that's just one way that the community has stepped up to support and to address our bus driver shortage. And I think another piece is just this community's value around bus drivers and the importance that they play in our mission. As you know, they are sometimes the first adults that our children see, and sometimes the last adults in many cases that our children see, and the impact that they have on just a smiling face as soon as the kids get on the bus. But not only that, we have bus drivers that are going into their pockets to assist our students with things like coats and shoes and school supplies. And so they are part of our school community. I often say that they're rolling classrooms, and they're our educators, they're driving a bus. And when you're getting your degree in education, one of the first things they tell you in the classroom management course is don't turn your back on your students. And our bus drivers are doing their jobs with their backs to their students as they are continuing to drive the bus safely. So I think the more that our community can wrap arms around and help celebrate and value our bus drivers, many board members have gone out to just provide donuts in the morning as they are arriving. Those small things really mean a lot. And this is what we heard from our bus drivers when we spoke to them and asked them, what are some additional things that we could do to just value you and keep coming back? And they just show us appreciation and respect the work that we do. So we are intricately involved in that, and the more community support we can get, the better. And then lastly, just to follow up again on the EC funding, a lot of times, this may help with the conversation as well. A lot of times people think that this is just an EC issue, but when we're pulling, or an ELL issue, but when we're pulling $5.5 million out of the general fund for EC, which we'll continue to do to support our scholars. When we're pulling $6 million out of general fund to support our ELL scholars, which we will continue to do. Again, as I mentioned, those funds could be used to either invest in our staff or to provide additional support to our gen ed students. So it's affecting all students, not just EC students. And so that may help with the conversation that it's not just an EC or an ELL issue, it's a all students issue. Thank you.
I wanted to open up to, if y'all have any questions to follow up on either of those, either the early college or the recommendations for like how we could partner in supporting our bus drivers. Any thoughts that come up for any of you guys?
Interested to know just a percentage of employees that are just bus drivers and those that are maybe teacher assistants or other positions that also have a driver's license.
I think that's something we can follow up on, right?
Yeah.
That's a great question, though. Okay. What else?
We do have in-house training. I don't know if we mentioned that, Dr. Lewis, and I think one of the issues our staff has presented is waiting for one DMV test. What is that position called? But I mean, that's another jam of weeks and weeks in this process of getting bus drivers licensed. That
Right.
the state might be able to help unleash for us.
Yeah, we've been identified as I can't remember the name of the site, but it really pretty much cuts the time in half that it takes for a bus driver to be trained and get their license. So we are an identified site that we can do that training on. So I think that's what you're talking about. Doctor?
I believe Ms. Byer is talking about the actual road test. There was apparently some, I don't know what happened, but our Durham person that was doing them for us is now been pulled to do them for multiple counties. And so they're only able to do maybe 2 tests a month or 3 tests a month for our Durham folks. So if we have 8 people ready, it could take us about 4 months to get those bus drivers in the buses.
I asked that question only because I know, again, Percy County is a very much smaller district. Percy County being a smaller district, but I lose this term requirement loosely because I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure most of all of our TAs have driver's license, and it was a requirement, it was part of the job description or what have you when they got hired. As long as they was physically able to get a driver's license, they had to, and that's how they use for their substitutes or monitoring and that sort of thing. And then I'm sure they get a higher pay than a regular TA with that, but yeah.
Right, and I know that that's something that we're exploring as well to make it more sustainable, because right now, if you have bus drivers, I mean, the hours of just being a bus driver are not only unusual hours, but for some unsustainable, right? Showing up to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, or 5 in the morning, ending by 9:30, and then coming back for 1 o'clock. You could pair that with something else or find ways to make it something that is just more livable. Hello, welcome. Board member Ms. Umstead just joined us. Sorry, we were just talking about bus drivers. Thank you.
Well, we most certainly can take that up with DMV. Most of us engage with them pretty heavily. And to your point, that was that site selection for Durham was something that Senator Warner and I worked on, I think, a term or 2 ago, because I think it was an identified issue in one of these meetings where we were not able to move through the process fast enough. And so I think most of us are on transportation in some way, form, or fashion in the Durham delegation. So that's something we most certainly can do. This is a follow-up that I will send to you all about Senator Chitlick and I in education appropriations brought up the pass-through dollars to charter schools. And it's yeah, I understand. When it comes to philanthropic dollars, be it a bake sale or a large gift, there are mechanisms to not have to send it to that are identified in statute. And so I want to make sure that because we asked this question very specifically, and so we're going to send you what we get from them to arm you with what you need. So I'll just leave it at that.
One other follow-up I would appreciate would be around your formula or request for a formula for one school nurse and then a social worker for 250 students. I'll be interested to know what that number would be if that formula existed compared to what you actually have now. So how many of those nurses would you be are you lacking without this formula, and how many social workers are you lacking without that formula?
Yes, Ms. Chavez.
I'm not sure about the nurses. I know that we've heard a lot from our social workers this year, and some of them have, I mean, they have upwards of 900,000 students, some of them, so we're very off. But I don't know what our ratio is for the whole district. I think it's somewhere in the upper hundreds, but
A lot of social workers were hired with a lot of federal funds when we saw come through the last, in the Biden administration. And so I've been interested to see with the districts that did that, how they plan to either sustain that or, what that number is and what they maybe anticipate going back to without that funding recurring, so.
Yeah, we definitely can get that. I do know our county funds are majority of our school nurses, I think, with the exception of maybe 10. But we can get that information.
Yeah, I'd also, one of the areas that I've been exploring is also our athletic coaches and supplemental salaries for them, and how many of those coaches are also full-time teachers. And I'd love some district level understanding of that and how we can support our coaches. And then I would also love feedback on, I've heard different things from teachers about the new state employees health plan, and I would love district level feedback on that. That's aggregating some of that, because that's an area where we have oversight around, and and just am eager to make sure that that's working for our state employees.
Can I take a moment of privilege on that? So anything that you can do. So the districts that have greater than 4,000 employees, which we fall in that boat, we are currently working with the state health plan in the state treasurer's office to implement the reporting structures for them to know what our employee salaries are, and so they can in turn determine what the premium is going to be for employees with that new plan. And I will say that it has not been collegial. And so they have put a lot of pressure on the districts to figure out how we're going to make this work. So the 12 large districts in North Carolina have a call, the top 12 have a call later today for us to all compare our notes and the experience that we've had with the state health plan. And we have begged them to give us the specs. So they want information from us, and we've got to find a way to produce it from our various forms of software. And we've hit some roadblocks with them and just getting very concrete specifications. And it's going to be difficult enough to manage because our employees are not going to be happy. We'll have some employees that are going to be paying more. And it's another kind of issue of transparency as we kind of work through pay issues. But so far, I'll just say the implementation has been very rushed and very challenging from the state health plan. And I think maybe there's been some restructuring in the state health plan with the new state treasurer. And so some new folks have been brought in to the state health plan who don't have exposure to K-12, and some folks have been promoted. And so it's been fun. But just glad someone said something about that, because that's a current challenge we're having to comply with what they want.
Board Member Chavez, you had something else you wanted to share?
yeah, just a few other items. I wanted to mention, because this came up, we talked about our EC cap and our teachers and discipline disparities. I did not know that we were number one as a state. And I wanted to mention that we have now put addressing the the disparities in discipline with students with disabilities into our strategic plan. And so that's something that we are working to address. And also heard a potential action item around finding someone who can be a liaison for you all when bills come up. So I would like to ask the chair, and who's not here, and vice chair to take that on and figure out, who that person will be. I think that would be really great to have something set up. The cell phone bill, I'll tell you, probably we have a lot of mixed feelings about it right here. Even among one person, we probably have mixed, feelings or thoughts about it. So, but I think I really like that idea of having, a kind of streamlined approach to giving feedback. I also heard around the truancy issue. I think we need to address that as well. We've unfortunately experienced these, transportation issues that have further impacted attendance, although we, have obviously thank you to our staff who's worked so hard to address them and get things into a better place. But I want to, just lift that up. We need to continue to discuss that. I know there are a lot of people in Durham who are very invested in that. And I also wanted to say thank you for the bill on to allow collective bargaining for public workers. I think especially at this time, we need to lean into worker rights and uplift those as we're kind of in this storm of sorts. So thank you.
I do have one follow-up about bus drivers. And this was around how many, so for example, if we're having an issue with moving them through the pipeline and getting the driving test, how many are we trying to move at a time? Because maybe we can work with the DMV to talk about bulk. And that probably can help all the other school districts. Having, serving another school district probably can tell us better. But if we have 5 or 10, that we may be able to say, hey, we really need to get this in and get this done. So is there a number? I think I heard 4, but I don't want to misunderstand that. Was it 4 to 10? I mean, or, whatever that frequency is, we can fight for a bulk rate or a bulk opportunity.
That's something we can follow up with you on. I've added to our action items. I know Ms. Smith is in the back taking notes too, to make sure that we can follow up with all y'all on each of these different action items. Speaking of any that we haven't discussed yet, things you want us to have on the radar or that you'd like for us to get back with you on that will help us in our partnership.
One thing that we have asked as a delegation is that we not just have these annual meetings, but we do have, it can be, quarterly or per semester. But we need to make sure that it's more frequent because as Representative Maury brought up, sometimes things happen quickly. We need to assess our progress and work with you all on maneuvers because sometimes, and to their points, things change and we have an opening. We have an opening in a short session to get something done and we want to make sure we're all in lockstep with it. So that'll be the only other request.
That's great. I love these ideas for additional connection and information sharing. So we'll make sure to follow up on each of those after this meeting. Dr. Lewis, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just follow up to Representative Jeffers. We are participating in Legislative Day, April 8th. Gina's.
Okay. Yes.
I'll just add that we have the opportunity to bring in House and Senate pages from our high school students. And I think we'll all be able to use all of our page slots this year. But in the future, I would love a deeper collaboration to make sure that our DPS students, that we're using all of our 5 times 630 slots to be able to bring in our DPS students, and that we encourage our DPS students to come into the building and that we really open up the General Assembly to them. So I would love an increased collaboration there just to make sure that when you graduate DPS, you've spent time in the building, you've met your legislators. If we've got students who are particularly interested in government, that we have the opportunity to take those students under our wing and give them that exposure opportunity. So I just love, I don't want to burden the staff. It's not a request. It just is an open door.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity for students. Thank you for naming that. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. This has been great to have this opportunity to share with one another. And I think I see this as one step towards continuing these conversations and building more connection.
I was
oh, yes, Ms.
just
Byer.
wondering, I know Ms. Umstead joined us late, but I was wondering if she wanted to share anything as she's come in on her.
I was handing it to you, Ms. Byer, not for me. Just thank y'all for being here. It's always a pleasure to be with you all, and thanks for the fight. And I'm sorry I came in late, but I'll get all the notes. And if there's anything I can do, let me know. Thanks, y'all.
Anyone else? All right. Anyone from cabinet? Right, last chance. Okay. Yes.
We
Oh,
want to acknowledge and thank our Senior Director of Building Services for being here, Mihal Lynch. Thank you. Did you have anything you want to add or about
No.
facilities? We had the infrastructure on here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me here. Very glad to meet you all. Happy to be part of the team. I joined here mid-December under Dr. Webb, Dr. Giovanni, Superintendent. I come from 5 years at NC Central, prior to that, Wake County School System, the big neighbor to the south, and prior to that, with City of Durham. Prior to that, British Isles with construction management experience. That's me. I'm glad to be here and happy to help. Thank you.
thank you so much. Well, great. Everybody enjoy your Friday. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, go Spartans. With that, the meeting's adjourned.